Let me read to you a passage from the 17th chapter of St. John's Gospel, verses 20 to 26. It's the Gospel for Thursday of the 7th week of Eastertide. St. John writes, Jesus prayed, "My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory, the glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them, and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them." That's from John chapter 17, verses 20 to 26. It speaks to us of the foundations. What do I mean? Well, it seems that the great thinkers of mankind can be divided into two groups. There are those who aimed at constructing a system of thought, and there are those who achieved great originality in a few chosen areas, and who did not concern themselves with developing a system. Thomas Aquinas in the Middle Ages achieved a system of thought that was remarkable, and the Church has pointed to him as a very good guide in respect to the synthesis between faith and reason. Another great Christian thinker was John Henry Newman, the English convert and priest of the 19th century. He did not offer a synthesis in his writings, but rather achieved his eminence because of his originality in a few chosen areas. One thing Newman repeatedly stressed was the importance for thought of our starting points, our first principles, where we're coming from. A system of thought does not begin with reason, but it is developed by reason. That is to say, reason takes the starting points of a person's thought and life and develops them by reasoning from what he takes to be the known to the unknown. Newman accounts for the wide divergence among people, in large measure to their divergence in the matter of first principles or starting points. It would seem that most people have no idea where they're coming from and what are the assumed starting points of their thought and life. Nor is there much wrong with this, because it can be very difficult, if not impossible, at times to know what are all our starting points or assumed fundamental truths. They are just part of us. We take them for granted. Their truth is so obvious to us that we scarcely advert to them. The question becomes serious, though, when our first principles are quite false and lead to a false attitude to the world. For instance, if considerable numbers of a world religion have a hostile attitude to the rest of the world and see themselves as justified in waging a campaign of terrorism on other societies, all the while invoking the one they worship, then their starting points, their assumed truths, have become lethal. Let us take a theoretical example. Let us imagine a person whose basic starting point is that he has been granted the truth, and that the truth, that is, the truth that is in his possession, is supreme. The truth must be acknowledged by all, he thinks, and those who refuse thus to acknowledge it lose their rights and dignity before the supreme dignity and rights of truth. Thus it is that because of his view on truth, he is hostile to the world, because he discovers that the world does not agree with him. The roots of his attitude to the truth probably lie in his moral life. But let us take another case. A person is convinced that he has been granted the truth and that this truth is supreme. But there is a second starting point to his thought and life, one that is probably of equal importance to the first. It is that he is in communion with God and with others. He is not alone with his truth, with others cut off from him by their disagreement, or rather in antagonism against him because of their disagreement with him. Rather, he is in communion with all, to a greater or lesser extent. And this fact of communion, just as with the fact of his having the truth, is a fundamental reality that constitutes a fundamental duty. The duty is to remain in communion and to foster it to the extent possible. He perceives that it is only when this communion with others, that is a basic fact of life and reality, is respected, that one's truth can flourish and spread among men. This first principle, this starting point, this fact from which he is coming, shapes his life in the world of men and societies, as does his respect for the supremacy of the truth. He is not then intolerant, but in dialogue and communion with others, precisely over the truth. And thus does communion advance, as well as the recognition of the truth. A great deal depends on where we're coming from, our first principles, our basic starting points. Now, what are the starting points, the fundamental facts on which our lives ought to be based according to the words of Jesus Christ? Well, they are precisely the ones I've just mentioned. Fidelity to the truth that he has revealed, and the communion that we have been granted with him and with the Father. Let us listen to our Lord's beautiful words as we heard them. Jesus prayed, "Father, it is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me." The message of Jesus Christ is supreme, as is our communion with one another and with God. Let us look at these basic truths of life as they come to us from Jesus Christ, our Redeemer and our God, and let us make them the foundation of our life.